It's been about 6 years since we last saw the Overlord on screen so far. Well, 3 if you want to count his digital remnant from Ninjago Decoded. And there hasn't been any signs hinting at his return in the series. That doesn't mean he won't show up in any future installments though. I'm just saying that Ninjago knows how to play dead better than a possum. And with the end of Ninjago supposedly a few years away, not to mention the entirety of the seasons, TV specials, and books that have transpired so far, it got me thinking of how things would have been different if the Overlord wasn't defeated. What if Zane was unable to take the Overlord down with him, allowing the latter to emerge victorious and continue his tyranny as the Golden Master? More importantly, how would the Dark Lord's ongoing reign affect the events that took place after Rebooted? Well, before we jump ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at how things would have played out. Had Zane latched onto the golden weapons, but freezing the Overlord in place was not enough to cause them to die, the golden weapons would have destroyed him, his heart would have reached critical mass, and he would have been obliterated. The ninja would still be under the assumption that he died, and Pixel wouldn't have found out that he was rebuilding himself in Werq Tower Factory, because the Overlord was using the building as his stronghold. He most likely wouldn't allow anyone to enter or leave the tower. The ninja also would have gotten away in time. Granted, they would have stayed to witness Zane's destruction, but the Overlord still released them from his grip to focus his attention on Zane. Skipping to the end, the Overlord emerges victorious in his ordeal, gloating about how Zane's efforts were admirable yet futile, and continue his reign as the Golden Master, forcing the citizens to evacuate, or be trapped and fall under his rule. Season 3 Rebooted as a whole would induce more tears than its original ending. The audience would have had a more divisive reaction to the Overlord, as he would have been the only villain to leave the biggest scratch on the ninja team as one of them bit the dust. It would have been like Avengers Infinity War, where Thanos killed Vision and half of the universe, which left the entire audience in tears. That is unless you didn't care for the original loss of Zane. If so, then the season wouldn't be different for you really. That's pretty much all of the change that would have been done at the end of Rebooted, but its impact would have been greater in the following seasons. Had the Overlord's reign continued, he would have cured Pythor from the Shrinking Pill, rallied the remaining Ninjroids, and moved beyond and conquered other sections of Ninjago, spreading his influence. The ninja team, on the other hand, would most likely go into hiding. But just like in the Tournament of Elements, the loss of Zane would have caused Kai, Cold J, and Lloyd to go their separate ways, so where the team could be varies. They would have retreated to the Dark Island, they could have stayed in Garmadon's monastery, but they would most likely rescue as many citizens as possible with the help of the Serpentine. Season 4 most likely wouldn't have happened because number 1, Chen needed the Elemental Masters to turn himself and his followers into Anachondri, and number 2, he wouldn't have been able to use a silver-colored iPhone as bait to lure the ninja to his island. But they would have most likely been introduced to some of the Elemental Masters under different circumstances, as they would most likely stay away from Ninjago City and form an alliance to protect the people of Ninjago in combat against the Overlord. And because of that, the Tournament of Elements doesn't happen, and Chen and his followers stay on his island, and the Cursed Realm never opens. Mora wouldn't have made it out and found the Realm Crystal to release the Preeminent, who would have stayed in the Ethereal Divide. Ninjago wouldn't crumble, Nautocon's Teapot wouldn't have been found, Klaus wouldn't have attempted to corrupt the Temple of Light, and Yang would still be cursed to haunt his temple. Here's the thing though, that still would not have prevented Achronix's return from the Time Vortex. He and Crux became lost in time 4 decades ago, and while Crux made it out first, Achronix still returned to the present day. None of that could have been prevented by the Overlord, as everything that allowed Achronix to return was everything that happened 40 years prior. In addition to that, Crux would most likely escape the Overlord's tyranny and find a new way to make it to his Vermilion camp and wait for Achronix's arrival. The two would have still reunited, leading to them creating their army, and 3 of the 4 Time Blades would have returned. However, without the Reversal Blade, or Cyrus Borg building the time apparatus, they wouldn't be able to travel back to the point where they lost their powers in the first place. Instead, they would most likely use their Vermilion army to either seek revenge on Wu and Garmadon, or ally with the Overlord. As arrogant as they are, they would never want to mess with him. His powers are superior to theirs in every way, and he would destroy them instantly. On top of that, they share the same enemies. As being the sons of the Overlord's arch-enemy, Wu and Garmadon not only have the Overlord to worry about, but the Time Twins as well, as they were the ones who stole their powers of time 4 decades ago. But this would change the reaction of their resurgence if this was the case. It could change how Kai and Nia discover the truth about their parents. Nia would most likely become the Water Ninja by now under Wu and Garmadon's teachings, and the Time Twins' return would catch the attention of both the Overlord and the ninja. Rei and Mai's reunion with Kai and Nia would be very different, because the Overlord probably had Ninjroids occupy the swamps, but Achronix and Crux would still force Kai and Nia to retrieve the Reversal Blade from the Boiling Sea. What they do with the Time Blades afterwards varies. They could have used them as their own weapons, they could have asked the Overlord to destroy the blades so that their powers would return to them, or ask him to send them back 40 years in the past to exact their revenge. Not so sure on those last two though. It wouldn't matter anyway since the Overlord would most likely just manipulate them to fulfill his own goals, and when they decide to take him on out of arrogance, they all get wrecked. That's pretty much how the Hands of Time would have played out. The scenarios in Sons of Garmadon and Hunted would also be different. The whole reason as to why Hirumi founded the Sons of Garmadon in the first place was to resurrect the evil side of Garmadon. But since he is alive and well at this time, there would be no point in using the Oni mask to resurrect him. And on top of that, Hirumi wanted to resurrect his evil side to get back at Lloyd. So either Garmadon and Lloyd would get through to Hirumi, or because of all that's been going on since Zane's death, Hirumi would never have met Garmadon or the rest of the ninja, and would probably be somewhere else or imprisoned by the Overlord. Thus, seasons 8 and 9 never happened. The Dragon Hunters would still be hunting dragons in the first realm, and would never have met the ninja and hunt them down to the dragon armor. But the Oni would still continue to take over the realms up until the events of Season 10. But the only reason as to why they didn't take over Ninjago beforehand was because Garmadon used his powers to prevent the Oni from entering. With him alive and purified, the Oni would begin their conquest of Ninjago. But, with the Overlord as the current ruler, they would most likely want to stay away from him because he has the golden power, which is basically an Oni repellent. Unless, of course, the Omega was like, screw it, and risked it for the biscuit. With the Overlord's Ninjoid army, maybe coupled with the ninja, a 3-way fight between the Overlord's forces, the Oni, and the ninja would be pretty cool. 4-way if the Time Twins made it through and decided to go rogue. While we could get some cool battle scenes and visuals, they might want to nerf the Overlord a bit because he's too powerful at this point. They might play more on his cat and mouse behavior, where he enjoys toying with his opponents and taunting them. Then, action, 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 boom! As mighty as the Oni are, in the end, the Overlord's powers are superior, and he vanquishes the Omega and the rest of the Oni and inadvertently purges their infection from the rest of the realms. With his knowledge of the Oni and what they were up to, their failed invasion would most likely motivate the Overlord to spread his tyranny to the rest of the realms. Because of that, the ninja wouldn't have found Asphera's prison, and she wouldn't have indirectly sent Zane to the Neverrealm because he's dead as of now, and the events of Prime Empire wouldn't happen as Ninjago City is still the Overlord's base of operations. The ninja probably wouldn't have gone to Shintaro, as they're probably staying hidden from all the chaos, and thus the ninja never discovered the Skull Sorcerers enslaving the Geckles and months to mine for Vengestone. So really, had the Overlord won and rebooted, it would have resulted in a more devastating ending to Season 3 as a whole, and Seasons 4 to 13 wouldn't happen either. Sure, there would be a few things that would have stayed relatively the same, such as Iconyx's return from the Time Vortex, but overall, the majority of all the seasons after Rebooted hinged on the Overlord's defeat, and his victory would have caused future events to either be different or never happen at all. And with Ninjago's last 2 years almost upon us, who knows what's to come. Maybe he'll return as the main villain of the final season. Only time will tell. So that's about it for this video. Do you prefer if the Overlord made it through Rebooted, or are you satisfied that Zane's kamikaze attack was successful? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel to watch more content. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!